Lakers think they go on with a bunch of white dudes. Somebody had to say it, so I'm saying it. Your 3 top players are white dudes? Really? This ain't golf. This ain't baseball. Hell, it ain't even soccer. And we got a whole bunch of brothers on Team USA. What y'all think this is? It's basketball.
Stephen A. Smith just delivered a statement that for almost anyone else could have instantly destroyed their reputation. He looked straight into the camera and told the entire basketball world that the Los Angeles Lakers aren't true championship contenders because 3 of their top players happen to be white. It wasn't about production, advanced stats, contract issues, injuries, or even postseason results. According to him, the deciding factor was simply the color of their skin. And here's the part that will surprise you most. The internet seemed to brush past the controversy as if nothing significant had even happened.
He gonna have to, bro.
You already know what they was on. They said, what if we said that about y'all?
Yeah. For real.
Niggas, that was the immediate response.
Yeah,
Stephen A, that you wild.
Yeah, he wildin'.
And you our guy. We gotta call you wildin', bro.
Yeah, that's inciting too much riots,
niggas
bro.
would have been tight if they would have been like,
Yes,
how are you gonna win?
Black people would have been
3
up
in
north.
soccer
Yes.
with 5 black guys on the field?
Right. That's true.
Niggas would have been tight.
That's
How are you gonna
bro.
win with a black quarterback?
100% though. That's true. Stephen A is.
We're not just going to let this slide, because if those exact same words had been spoken by a white sports analyst, the reaction would have been completely different. It wouldn't have stayed as a trending headline. It would have turned into a nationwide media firestorm. Every major sports network would have led with the story from the very first segment. Executives would likely be holding emergency meetings, public apologies would be demanded, and suspension rumors would dominate the conversation before the day was over. That's exactly why this deserves a closer look. We need to examine what was actually said and ask the question that many mainstream outlets seem unwilling to confront. Why is it that Stephen A. Smith can make a comment like this without facing the same level of backlash?
So can you guys imagine a white sports commentator going on a rant complaining about a team building around 3 black athletes? It probably would never happen. But if it did, I'm pretty sure that sports analysts would be called racist. Now, I'm mainly talking about the NBA right here, because Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, of course, he has his own show, Straight Shooter. He went on a racist rant about the Lakers building around 3 white players.
On July 1, 2026, just one day after the Los Angeles Lakers finalized a trade to bring center Walker Kessler over from the Utah Jazz, Stephen A. Smith went on air with what he described as the opinion that nobody else was willing to say. His argument unfolded in a way that immediately caught people's attention. With LeBron James gone in free agency, Smith said the Lakers' future now revolves around Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and Walker Kessler. And according to the way he presented it, those 3 stars supposedly share one major flaw that he believes hurts the team's championship chances. You won't believe it. His focus wasn't on their talent, production, or fit together, but simply the fact that they're white.
In NBA history, when have you seen your 3 most prominent players on a basketball team all be white? And that takes you to the promised land. Somebody got to say it, so I'm saying it.
According to Stephen A. Smith, that one characteristic alone is enough to convince him the Lakers have no real path to a championship. He even compared the Lakers to sports like golf and baseball, implying those are the places where white athletes are expected to thrive instead. He also pointed to the number of black players on Team USA, almost as if the national team's racial makeup somehow proved his point about the Lakers. Let's be clear, this wasn't a simple mistake or an awkward comment that people twisted out of context. It wasn't an off-the-cuff remark either. It was a carefully delivered argument claiming that a professional basketball team's championship potential should be judged by the race of its leading players.
To say it, Stephen A., nobody had to say that dumb stuff. Nobody had to say that. Because here's what we cannot do, and by we, I mean people that look like you and me. We cannot make an issue when individuals want to say, we ain't seen black quarterbacks win a Super Bowl years ago. We cannot make an issue when Bill Polian says Lamar Jackson should play wide receiver, not quarterback, and we call it racist. We cannot make an issue when we say, we haven't seen black head coaches competently coach 20, 25 years ago. We cannot make issues about racial and racism in other sports and then sit here and get off a tongue-in-cheek racist joke. Because Stephen A., you would be the first one on First Take crying racism in the event the role was reversed and an individual said, we ain't seen too many black quarterbacks win Super Bowls. Now I'm talking full black quarterbacks, okay? I'm talking black mama and black daddy.
Emmanuel Acho was one of the very few mainstream sports voices willing to confront what he viewed as a clear double standard. While speaking on Speakeasy, Acho didn't soften his message or dance around the issue. He argued that Stephen A. Smith would be the very first person to label those comments as racist if they had come from someone else. Just stop and think about that for a second. The same analyst who has often criticized others for making race-based arguments in sports was now facing accusations of doing exactly that himself. And instead of backing away after the backlash started, Smith chose to stand by his remarks and double down.
Yeah. I guess that Stephen A. Smith probably missed it when in the 1980s, this one team called the Boston Celtics, you know, they had this average white player. You know, he's just average. He was okay. Larry Bird. I'm joking, right? Larry Bird. Probably the best player in the NBA at that time in the NBA, white guy. They had a big three. They also had a second white guy named Kevin McHale, who was the second best player on the team. Now, granted, they had the Chief at center, great player too. Wasn't Danny Ainge also on that team? Yeah, white guys.
Before we go any further, let's completely break down the basketball argument itself, because beyond being racially controversial, it simply doesn't hold up when you look at NBA history. Stephen A. Smith asked what sounded like a definitive question. When has a team led by 3 white players ever won an NBA championship? He presented it as if there was no possible answer, almost like the history books automatically supported his conclusion. But they don't. The answer is the 1985-86 Boston Celtics. Led by Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Danny Ainge, that team captured the NBA title and is still recognized as one of the greatest squads ever assembled. Bird won league MVP, McHale established himself as one of the most technically gifted big men the game has ever seen, and Ainge played a valuable role on a championship roster. So yes, history already provides the exact example Smith suggested didn't exist. Fast forward to today, and Luka Doncic is already a multiple-time All-Star, scoring champion, and one of the most gifted offensive creators the league has ever witnessed. Austin Reeves earned his place through years of consistent improvement and has backed up his contract with real production on the court. Walker Kessler is coming off one of the strongest seasons of his career as one of the NBA's premier shot blockers. Saying those 3 players can't lead a contender simply because of their race isn't just controversial, it ignores basketball history and reduces a complex conversation to a flawed argument based on skin color.
Better than the majority of the black people in the NBA. All my life. He's better than the majority of the niggas in the NBA.
He's a top 5 player.
Yes.
Yeah. Austin Reeves a top 30 player.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
But
so it's cool.
Massive change from last year. What does Lakers
It's
team
not
look like?
really, though.
But like, it
losing.
ain't like they got some sad white dudes.
I swear to God. They got quality
It wasn't like
players.
There's one point that deserves to be addressed head-on. The biggest takeaway from this entire situation isn't just what Stephen A. Smith chose to say, it's the response, or more accurately, the lack of one, from ESPN. Whenever a commentator on a major sports network makes remarks that could reasonably be viewed as racially insensitive, networks usually respond quickly. Statements are released, clarifications are issued, and discussions begin about where the line should be drawn. We've watched that pattern play out time and time again, so everyone already knows what it looks like. But after Stephen A. Smith spent several minutes arguing that a team's championship potential is tied to the race of its core players, ESPN gave no public indication that it viewed the comments as a problem. There was no official statement, no visible concern, and that silence became part of the story itself. One user on X summed up the controversy by saying that if a white journalist had made the exact same comments about black players, Stephen A. Smith would likely have been among the first to call them racially biased. Whether you agree with that comparison or not, it's easy to understand why so many people believe they're seeing a double standard, and that's the question fueling the debate far more than the original comment itself.
Between causation, correlation, and coincidence. Now, if you wanted to, and I know you can because you are one of the more astute basketball analysts in the history of the sport, if you wanted to say, I don't think that Walker Kessler, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic have the athleticism to be able to slow down opposing offenses and lead the Lakers to a championship beyond the shadow of a doubt, you can say that. But if you want to bring up something that might be coincidental and act like what is coincidental is causation or correlation based upon race, now you just as wrong as the individuals 20 and 25 years ago who said black quarterbacks aren't smart enough to lead a team to a Super Bowl.
Emmanuel Acho made a point on Speakeasy that stood out because it cut straight to the heart of the controversy. Speaking directly about Stephen A. Smith, Acho said, "You're one of the sharpest basketball analysts this game has ever seen. You can't spend years calling out racism and then turn around and make a remark that people can reasonably view as racist yourself. You don't get that privilege." That message resonated because it reached beyond one individual and challenged the credibility of the broader conversation about race in sports. The reality is that genuine cases of racial bias do exist in professional sports. They can appear in player evaluations, contract negotiations, media narratives, and even in the way careers and legacies are remembered. Those discussions are important, and they deserve to be handled with fairness and consistency. Acho's central point was simple. You can't condemn racial bias in one moment while appearing to reinforce it in the next. That's where many people believe the contradiction lies. Stephen A. Smith has built his reputation on holding everyone accountable and speaking his mind regardless of who might disagree. That fearless image has become the foundation of his entire media brand. But on July 1st, 2026, he made an argument that many critics viewed as so focused on race that they believe almost anyone else in a similar position would have faced far more serious professional consequences.
News yesterday, people want to get at me because of what I said, and there's this whole brouhaha going on because, racism and racist comes into play because I pointed out about the Lakers being led by three white dudes and how that ain't gonna cut it, that ain't gonna win you a championship. When's the last time white dudes, three white dudes, a team led by three white dudes won a championship? And obviously there's a lot of people out there saying that I should not have said what I said and they call it racist and all of this other stuff. I don't want to hear that. I'm not backing up one bit. This is about basketball. We're talking basketball.
What this entire controversy really exposes is the current state of sports media and the questions many people are now asking about consistency. It has fueled the perception that certain kinds of race-based commentary receive far less scrutiny than others. To many critics, it feels like an unwritten rule exists where some statements are treated differently depending on who says them, and that's where the debate becomes impossible to ignore. The simplest way to test it is to take the exact same comment, reverse the racial groups involved, and then compare the public reaction. If that reaction changes dramatically, if careers suddenly become at risk and outrage explodes overnight, then people will naturally question whether the same standard is being applied equally. That's the issue at the center of this discussion. None of that changes Stephen A. Smith's influence or the impact he has had in sports media. But it also doesn't place him above criticism when he enters territory that, by his own principles, would normally deserve scrutiny. Over the years, he has spoken extensively about fairness and argued that race should never be the deciding factor when evaluating athletes. He has repeatedly criticized what he believes are double standards in sports and beyond. Yet on the record, he argued that 3 NBA players couldn't lead a championship team because they're white. He described it as something that simply had to be said. But judging players by their skin color instead of their basketball ability is exactly why so many people rejected that argument from the start.
I would say it's lazy. I would say it's stereotypical. I'd say you're racist. It's one thing if it's a bit. The problem is when you take it over into analysis. You're talking about this generation of basketball. The European international influence has completely changed the game. You can easily argue 2 of the top 5 players in the NBA are white dudes by that standard. Luka Doncic, objectively cold. Austin Reeves, objectively cold. Walker Kessler is a good player, doesn't deserve to be mocked because his name is Walker Kessler. If I were to say the same thing about hockey and 3 black players, I'd be canceled before we came back from commercial.
The reason this story continues to generate attention goes far beyond one controversial comment. For many people, it has highlighted what they see as a deeper issue in the way sports media handles conversations about race. Critics argue that there isn't a single standard that's applied consistently across the board. Instead, they believe the line often shifts depending on who's speaking and who's being criticized. Fans from different backgrounds, different platforms, and even different political viewpoints all noticed the controversy almost immediately. People following the story weren't simply expressing frustration, they were documenting what they believed was a double standard as it unfolded in real time. Across X, users shared screenshots and side-by-side comparisons to support their arguments. Some even described it as one of the most racially charged takes delivered by a major sports personality in recent years, and that opinion wasn't limited to a small corner of the internet. At the same time, recognizing the historic impact and excellence of black athletes in basketball has never required dismissing the abilities of white players. Both ideas can exist together without contradicting one another. You can celebrate one group's legacy while still evaluating every player based on talent, production, and performance rather than race. But many critics believe Stephen A. Smith shifted the discussion away from basketball and toward race when it didn't have to go there. And that's why, by the same standards he has often applied to others, so many people believe his comments deserve the same level of scrutiny.
Somebody got said, so I'm saying it. You ain't going anywhere. Being led by 3 white dudes in today's generation of basketball. I'm letting you know right now, it ain't happening. And Luka's a bad brother. And Austin Reeves is no scrub. And they both have earned what they have earned. And then with LeBron James or some other brothers I get. But those 2 and Walker Kessler? You ain't scaring anybody with that.
Stephen A. Smith insisted that somebody had to say it. He delivered those words as though he was speaking an uncomfortable truth that everyone else in sports media was too afraid to acknowledge. He presented himself as the one willing to make a race-based argument about the Lakers' championship chances, while others stayed silent. But here's the part that deserves a closer look. Nobody was obligated to frame the conversation that way. The debate surrounding this issue isn't hidden or difficult to find. The clip is available for everyone to watch, and people can judge it for themselves using the exact same standard they would apply to anyone else. That's ultimately what this controversy has become about. It's not about demanding that Stephen A. Smith lose his platform or disappear from television. It's about whether the standards of accountability should remain consistent regardless of who's speaking. If fairness is the principle, then many believe that principle should apply equally to everyone, not only when it's convenient.
You don't have the luxury of crying out racism and then simultaneously spewing a racist remark. We just don't have that luxury. So with that being said, Contrary to Stephen A's belief that somebody got to say it, nobody had to say it.
And that's the entire point of this conversation. If a standard is truly meant to be fair, then it has to be enforced the same way for everyone, no exceptions. Right now, a lot of people believe that isn't what's happening, and that's exactly why this controversy has grown beyond one comment or one analyst. It has become a debate about consistency, accountability, and whether the same rules apply across the board. That's the conversation many believe the sports media has been reluctant to fully address. So instead of ignoring it, we're putting it front and center and letting the audience decide for themselves.